How's everybody out there doing today? Love you guys. Love all of you. Yeah, let's go ahead and let you see this. This is about you, folks. This is all about you. So, welcome to episode 15. I've been doing this, 15? I skipped 1 week. Yes, I did. So episode 15, that puts me at somewhere around, almost 4 months. We're close. We've done better than a quarter. That's how long we've lasted. And I owe it all to KRTD Media and what they represent as far as actually giving me the opportunity to talk to you. So let's go ahead and get on into the issues today. And these are some great issues now. Okay, I'm going to keep this part short because I know an awful lot of you really don't like talking about this. So let's go ahead, hit it up here real quick. Elon Musk finances purchase of Twitter. Okay, now this is not a done deal. There's still some people that are talking about it, but we are already seeing interactions that are occurring on Twitter. Things as far as the algorithms changing, databases, accesses, who can see who doing what. It's almost as if the poison pill has been applied and they're in the process of rolling back an awful lot of the things that were put in at one point. So you're seeing more interactions. You're seeing more of what, in a lot of cases you want to see because you're no longer being limited to people you like, limited from, or to people you like based on your algorithm, and where it fits into the mix. So we are already seeing significant changes in Twitter feeds as far as what's going on with that. Hey, how you doing, Michelle, Dolores? Appreciate you guys, Brandy. That's why I'm going to keep this one short. I know you don't like talking about this one, Brandy. Let's go ahead and get this out of the way. Okay, now let's be real here. He financed the purchase. He did not have enough cash. Okay. So for those of you who are familiar with what goes on, bankers, or in this case, assume a certain number of venture capitalists have bankrolled this loan for a private interest to take a publicly traded company private. Okay, Elon Musk, Twitter is a publicly traded company. Elon Musk's purchase of Twitter is in a bid to take it private. And we are already seeing significant changes happen with the platform, before the deal's even been voted on. So I'm taking a look at this and thinking that pretty good chance that the deal is going to go through. And there's an awful lot of proprietary software and surveillance that's been put into the system that they don't want a foreign national to have access to once he takes his company private and is able to actually start pulling apart the code. So look for big things coming from that. Now, moving on, since I know some of you don't want to talk about this, let's get on to the other issues. Okay, this is going to affect NATO. And again, this is about bankers' wars. Bankers, it's about war between money. The last 300 years, some of the things that we've seen as far as war in the United States, well, globally, last 300 years, because, only 250 of it's involved wars in the United States. Hey, Kay, thanks for showing up. Appreciate it. Is bankers are going to fund both sides. There is a return on investment in war. Ooh, Brandy, you want to bring that up? Okay, we're going to circle back to that in a little bit. Reason why is because this was something else that just came up today in relationship to Twitter. But yes, I did see that. So Russia cuts the gas supplies to Poland and Bulgaria. Okay, now as my senator James Risch once said, Russia is nothing more than a gas station pretending to be a country. Yeah, he actually said that. But the thing is Russia does have access to a significant amount of resources because of its land wealth. It has a lot of land. It has a lot of natural resources under it, much like the U.S. and Canada does. It's got a, you know, so it does have oil. It does have gas. Okay. And now they're denying Poland and Bulgaria. Both of these are countries that are associated with NATO now in violation of the treaty. Well, technically, it wasn't a treaty because nobody actually signed off on it. But the agreement that the US and NATO would not expand once the wall in Germany came down. Um, ooh, interesting concept. Didn't we sell them technology to drill in Siberia? I'm assuming that is Siberia. I can't think of any portion of Russia that's actually Siberia. But yes, and this is one of those things that's interesting because during the Clinton administration, we sold all sorts of stuff to all sorts of people. We sold nuclear technology to China. We sold fracking technology to Russia. We sold. Thank you, Clintons, for selling out US based technology. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing. Reason why is because fracking in and of itself is not a sustainable technology. Now, currently, one of the reasons why fracking isn't popular in an awful lot of places is because it's not cost effective until the cost of oil per gallon hits a target level. Okay, when gas starts getting cheap, you cannot use fracking to produce oil cheap enough to make it profitable. In order to use fracking, oil's got to be expensive, which means Saudi Arabia has to cut us off, or Russia has to cut us off, or some other nation has to cut us off. And then we can go back to fracking again. That's the deal with fracking, folks. Now, an awful lot of you understand that when you go in and you actually go through the process of cracking bedrock in order to force the oil out of the cracks and crevices, you destabilize the geology of a given region. Okay, you're doing stuff, you're breaking bones of bedrock under the feet of communities when you do this. But yes, we did sell them the technology in order to frack in Siberia. And I guess in Siberia, it's okay to frack there because nobody lives there anymore, supposedly. But yes. Now, what we do with regards to Poland and Bulgaria is now there is an addition on, earthquakes. Yep, earthquakes. You get lots and lots of earthquakes from fracking, which is one of the reasons why you can't really do it in heavily populated areas like Oklahoma. Right, clay formations. There's a couple different reasons, most of which, again, I'm not an expert on the technology, so I'm not going to get too much into the nuts and bolts of which geological formations are okay to frack and which ones aren't. But what this amounts to is when Russia cuts the gas supplies to Poland and Bulgaria, that creates an additional demand on NATO suppliers, NATO supply chain, because NATO now is responsible for making sure that Poland and Bulgaria have enough gas to get through. This creates an additional demand in NATO nations that NATO suppliers, or in this case, because of our allegiance, our alliance, becomes the responsibility of the US to augment to make sure that, yes, this is going to affect strategic reserves because Biden's going to want to give them gas to keep them loyal to NATO. Interesting. Oh, okay. That's going to be an interesting topic coming up. It's one of those great things when you have friends with extreme sense of humor. And I'll go ahead and point it out here in a little bit because it's funny. Um, yeah, so we're looking at additional stretches on the United States strategic reserve of oil and gas, our ability to produce, and our ability to make sure that our allies through NATO in Poland and Bulgaria are capable of sustaining operations. Now, Poland, because they've gone into direct support of the Ukraine, they're back to back. Poland and Ukraine are neighbors. They share a border. A significant amount of U.S. aid and foreign aid that's been going into the Ukraine has been going in through their border with Poland. Okay. Boycott, divest. The other one, BDS. Boycott, divest, and yeah. Okay. Russia's doing it. Russia's doing it to allies of NATO. Russia's doing it to allies of Ukraine. Russia's doing it in order to choke the supply of weapons and resources to the Ukraine to make sure that they are able to secure Ukraine for their purposes. Ukraine has become the proxy war between Russia and NATO. Unavoidable. And it looks like we have every intent on extending that war until the very, very dirty end. Let's see, Brandy, right? Oklahoma and Arkansas. Now, this is one of those things that's interesting about the Green New Deal. Okay, because as we start taking a look at how low Biden decides to take the oil reserves. Okay, now one of the objects behind reducing the strategic reserves as far as oil goes is the idea that we do not have a backup. So that pushes us more towards the idea of let's pursue green energy options. Let's use the government to subsidize green energy options, much like what they did during Obama while Biden was president when they gave Solyndra basically a no bid contract in order to develop green energy in the United States. Now, as we all know, Solyndra ended up going bankrupt with a too big to fail after a no bid contract and got an awful lot of money sent into it to family members of Biden. Okay. So, for those of you who are thinking that Biden is a friend of the Green New Deal, he is not by any stretch of the imagination. Every time Biden and family have signed on to an arrangement for the Green New Deal, Biden family members are finding themselves in positions where they are able to access and get paid very well for making sure the Green New Deal doesn't actually succeed. Yeah. Remember, folks, this is not the administration where you can expect to see benefits from a Green New Deal. Don't expect it. Don't look for it. We're going to continue to see these games played back and forth as far as let's drop the reserves so that people know that once we're out, we're out. And we got to go to something else. What choices are we going to have? Okay. Now, that's the ongoing trade war, because that's what it is. It is a war. We are currently doing a trade war with sanctions. That was the S word. Boycott, divest, sanction. Okay, we are currently doing trade wars through sanctions, through boycotting, through divesting. We have boycotted, Russia's boycotted the majority of the U.S. Congress right now. They've boycotted the majority of the Biden administration. Okay, we are seeing that as an aspect. They are boycotting individuals rather than the necessity of boycotting countries as a whole. One of the things with sanctions in Poland and Bulgaria is this is one of the first times they've actually directly addressed a country outside of the Ukraine in this current conflict as far as sanctioning the entirety of a people and their ability. Now, that said, Russia does understand that Poland and Bulgaria will be able to access resources, but it does put a strain on their resources, it does put a strain on NATO supply chains. Now, why this is of particular interest as we continue to go on and develop, ooh, it's going to be a big one. Okay. In the last 6 months, 18 U.S. food processing plants have been destroyed in the United States. Okay. These are major food processing plants owned by what is essentially the food oligopoly in the United States. Okay. These 18 U.S. food processing plants are essentially owned and controlled by the three major food producers in the United States. Okay, 90% of every product you touch on a grocery store shelf goes through the hands of the three companies that own these 18 U.S. food processing plants that have been destroyed. I did not, Michelle. Doesn't surprise me, but I did not. What this represents is we have spent the better part of the last 20 years existing on what has been developed as the just-in-time supply chain. Okay. Remember last year when we all ran out of toilet paper, and it took about 2-3 weeks before, up to a month in some places before we had toilet paper back on the shelves. Okay, that is a result of a just-in-time supply chain. Okay. We have modeled, yes, we have modeled consumer habits to such a degree that we know within a couple points how much of a given product the consumer base will consume over a given amount of time. Thank you, Walmart. Okay, they pioneered this. We know exactly how much. This way, we're not spending money storing stuff because we know exactly how much we need to make and what the deadlines are to make sure that it goes from farm to table with a minimum number of stops in the shortest amount of time. We don't warehouse things the way we used to back in the 50s and 60s and 70s, which is one of the things that we see an awful lot of with regards to our supply chain. Okay? We don't have warehouses because we don't need warehouses. They're not going to stay in one place long enough that we need thousands and thousands of acres of storage in order to keep the food and the stuff that's going to go to our grocery store shelves. So when we're out of something, we are out until it can be replaced. Hey, Steve, how you doing, man? Appreciate you stopping by and saying hi. What this means is 18, which is a significant portion of our food supply, our just-in-time food supply chain. Yes, I'm going to let you see my bright and cheery face here. Is now out of circulation. Every one of the other plants now needs to step up production in order to meet the production goals so that we don't end up with shortages in key areas because we know exactly how much the consumer base is going to consume in any given location. Now, for those that are close to center of distribution points, like those of us here in Idaho, we got a couple key distribution points. We're going to get distribution first. Those that are further out from the city centers, from the metro center areas. Chicago's another one that's going to continue to be supplied. Las Vegas, certain places in California. Most of our port cities are going to continue to see supplies, but we will see more and more rural areas left without necessary reserves. We will see them, So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Unfortunately, this goes back to one of our concepts during the Vietnam War. Okay. Give me a moment because I want to make sure I get this quote right. Um, Henry Kissinger. Yes, that Henry Kissinger. In talking about global politics. Hey, Amber. Good to see you. Good to see you. And Michelle, yeah, absolutely. We need to stop doing the over processing. And one of the things about our just in time supply chain is, um, yeah, is right. How many people cut up their own chickens? They don't. I got a friend who's got chickens. We don't actually cut the chickens. We just use them for eggs. Okay. And Steve, absolutely support your farmer markets. That cuts the supply chain. That cuts it down significantly. You're no longer seeing food sent 1,000 miles to a processing plant just to turn around and have it shipped 1,000 miles back to be on your store shelves. Okay, and this is one of those situations. We have a significantly sized meat processing plant here in the state of Idaho. Matter of fact, right here in the Treasure Valley. Okay, none of the meat processed there is going to stay in Idaho. Literally, the meat. It's nice that it's actually being processed in Idaho because that's where it's grown. But the beef is being raised in Idaho. It's being slaughtered in Idaho, and it is all predestined via Chicago commodities market. Futures bought and paid for, contracts already signed to be sent overseas to other locations. Okay. Beef grown in Idaho, on Idaho land, on Bureau of Land Management land in the state of Idaho, will never find itself sitting on a table in the state of Idaho because of the nature of the way we've done our commodities trading across the United States. Now, again, this is problematic. We still have people who do, yeah, do the short. They have agreements with local butchers. They will butcher a quarter, a half, and be able to sell it. Arrangements like that. Yeah. Ah, yeah. Um. Oh, actually, right. Buy a whole chicken, cut it up, and quarter it yourself. Yeah, not too many people do that. We just go in and we buy the farm fresh chicken breast. Um, okay, now one of the things Michelle actually brings up here, the massive raids on meat packing facilities have stopped. Now, one of the things is this was actually an ongoing issue for a significant amount of time because there were um, about every 6 months raids on meatpacking plants because they were using undocumented labor in order to process the meat. Okay. So ICE would come in, would do a raid. Half the employees in the meatpacking plant would find themselves on their way to being deported back to Mexico because none of them had documentation. Okay. The temporary agency that was hiring all of these undocumented labor to come in and actually work in the meatpacking plants would then fold up because they were in violation of labor laws in the United States. Now, this wouldn't affect the meatpacking plant owners because this was a shell corporation, a temporary that was hiring the illegal workers. So the shell company temp agency would just fold up, close its doors. 2 months later, they would be back up as a different organization with new management, and they would go back through the same process. And you would see this steady cycle of undocumented labor come in, do about 5 months of labor doing the processing, then find themselves deported, shorted, 2 months worth of labor because ICE wasn't going to let them get paid. Okay, now these raids have stopped. And at the same time, we've actually shut down a significant number of these meatpacking plants, either because of COVID. Okay. COVID cut down the number of meatpacking plants that were operational for the last 2 years. And now, over the last 6 months, we've seen a rash of these fires associated with the meatpacking plants. So, we've always had this problem with the supply chain and the way it's managed for profit. Now, what we're seeing is fewer and fewer processing plants. That's going to shorten the supply, increase the demand. And before too much longer, they'll have you eating bean paste and Soylent Green in order to make up the difference. Yes, I said Soylent Green. Right? Big Ag needs the chemical fertilizers coming from Russia. Russia is one of the primary sources of fertilizer that's used in Green Revolution style agriculture. Okay, now for those of you, 1960s, 1970s was a real big push for Green Revolution. Okay, now the thing is the Green Revolution was never green. Okay, it was a petroleum-based agricultural creation that was able to produce so much more food in a given time in a given location because of the heavy industrialization of agriculture during the era. So the thing is even though it was able to produce an awful lot of food in a short amount of time, they were never able to create a situation where it was actually sustainable, because sooner or later, the natural resources, which were finite because they were being mined out of the earth, were going to dry up. Okay, so Green Revolution. It's not the Green Revolution. It's not Green Evolution. It's not the Green New Deal. Literally, it is the industrialization, petroleum-based industrialization of U.S. and, for that matter, global agriculture. We exported the Green Revolution to nearly 90 countries during the Carter administration. Yeah. Iowa, 2008. Okay. Right, legalized. That's one of the things. Idaho, one of the few states in the United States where we are actually allowed to export the products of prison labor. One of 4 states in the United States where we are allowed to export the product of prison labor. Our big meat processing plant, the one I was just talking about, is one of those that hires, rents, leases, prison labor in order to maintain the labor force in that meat processing plant. Okay. Legalized slavery. What was it they called that, Amber? Peonage. Peonage. Serving off forced labor because of a crime. The irony is in an awful lot of these places where they are serving peonage, where they are working off the time for their crimes, most of these people were arrested for drug-related offenses, non-violent offenses. The reason why is because nobody actually wants a murderer working in a slaughterhouse. I wonder why. Right? Tough job. And it stinks, man. It stinks. Blood and bleach. Blood and bleach. That's what you smell when you're working in a slaughterhouse. Yeah. Right, Amberly? Lots of injuries result. It's a tough job. You're working with unpredictable animals. They do things in ways they're not supposed to do. And we're dumping it on former drug addicts that have been put in prison. Now, this is an interesting thing. Fertilizer is one of those things. We lost access to the Russian-based fertilizer. Here in the state of Idaho, we actually have phosphate mining facilities here in the state, and they produce a significant amount of the fertilizers we use here in the state of Idaho. So Idaho is one of the few places with immediate access to fertilizer for our area. And, We got first access to it. Thank you, Monsanto and Simplot. Um, horse paste for you, is going to be better than Soylent Green. Where do you draw the line on, pet versus food when push comes to shove? Family farms are best. And yeah, we go back to that, Kay. Reason why I shorten the supply line. We got family farms, small farms that still exist in the state of Idaho. Not all of them have gone industrial. So we have the option of being able to go to them, and buy their surplus that hasn't already been purchased as part of the Chicago Commodities Exchange or some other sort of deal. Right, chemical pesticides associated with Monsanto, phosphates as fertilizer versus phosphates or glyphosates as pesticides and pesticides, fungicides, and herbicides. Right. Honestly, I don't think Monsanto has ties to Russia, especially at this point. Reason why is because Monsanto is no longer owned, it's actually a subsidiary of Bayer. Now, Bayer is a German company. Okay. Germany owns Bayer, Bayer owns Monsanto. So it's Bayer, Monsanto. I'm not sure exactly. This is one of those things that we need to look at. Okay. Germany owns Monsanto. And yes, you mentioned this here. Russia has rejected, I believe they have, as have certain other countries. India is another one that's rejected Monsanto because of the way they handle the seeds, the suicide seeds that they've distributed to farmers. It used to be traditional farming involved retaining a number of seeds, so that you can plant the next season. Okay, Monsanto provided a significant number of indigenous and Indian farmers with suicide seeds that wouldn't grow the following year. As a result, several farmers in India lost their livelihoods, lost their farms, and suicided as a result in mass protest. Okay, India no longer supports that particular kind of management of agriculture. And yeah, we just sanctioned it. We just said, no, we're not taking any fertilizer, which is actually going to hurt us a lot. It makes all of the products in the supply chain significantly more expensive. Agri-processor, yeah, this is what we were talking about as far as illegal labor management and practices. That would in turn be shut down after dealing with certain things. They'd promise jobs, they'd promise income, and then cheat them. An agri-processor would get busted, they'd rename it and go back into operation, continue with the same process. Okay, the owners of these companies, owners of these corporations were not held liable because of decisions made by subordinates who remain nameless through the court processings. Everybody was allowed to continue doing illegal things because Big AgriCorp made sure that their practices for profit were protected. Right? I see you went and did some looking up there, Ghost Start. Yeah, absolutely. We are losing food processing capability. In addition to the rising cost of fertilizer here in the United States, we are losing the ability to process. And that's right. I was working on that. Henry Kissinger quotes, "Who controls the food supply controls the people. Who controls the energy can control whole continents. Who controls money can control the world." Okay. You think about what that means right now, in this moment, in the United States, in Russia, in NATO. Okay. United States just lost 18 food processing plants over the last 6 months. Our food is owned by the Chicago Commodities Exchange and whoever has bought futures against the food, wheat, soy, vegetable oils, beans, rice, okay, beef, all sold on the Chicago Commodities Exchange, all currently owned by foreign nationals who bought futures. The truth is unless your local farmer actually has a surplus, everything he has raised is already owned by someone else. Okay? And then what's left? We just lost 18 plants able to process what was left beyond those very basic commodities. Okay? Our food is currently controlled by other countries. Energy. He who controls the energy controls countries. Right? Growing your own food is a radical act. Seed sharing, local grow ops, community gardens, community supported agriculture. It's going to be key, particularly as things continue to change. Okay, now we are dealing with an energy war right now. Okay, who owns the oil? Who's providing the oil? Who's holding the oil in sanctions against other countries? This goes back to the issue with Poland and Bulgaria, because Poland and Bulgaria are no longer getting their oil from Russia. That now puts a burden on NATO's oil and gas supply lines. Energy war. Okay, he who controls the energy controls the nations. Okay, that includes our ability to put U.S. troops anywhere in the world in under 24 hours. Okay, that is one of the things here in the United States. Our force projection is what allows us to go anywhere, anytime we want, put troops on the ground up to a brigade of combat troops anywhere in the world in under 24 hours. That just got exponentially more expensive. That is why Russia and China have decided that unilateral actions by the United States are no longer going to happen anywhere in the world. Multilateral. Russia's going to do what they want to do. China's going to do what they want to do. And they have the resources now in order to prevent us from preventing them, including the continuing ability to veto UN resolutions against their actions in much the same way the United States has done for the past 50 years. Okay. And last, the money supply. Okay, one of the things that's happened in the last 2 years, okay, we have added a significant amount of money to the money supply. We have devalued the US dollar. Okay, the International Monetary Fund, which used to use primarily the US dollar based on petrol trade, the petrodollar, everything oil based was traded in oil. Okay, nobody any longer trusts the value of the American dollar because of the way Congress is overprinted in association with the Federal Reserve, BlackRock, Vanguard, and of course, authorization by US Congress. Okay. We used to be able to control the world because the US dollar was the reserve currency. Right now, a significant number of the nations around the world are looking to China to be the reserve currency in light of the way US Congress and the Federal Reserve has decided to manage monetary policy in the United States. Okay. Right. Multipolar. That was the word they were used. world where the US dollar is in the center of the fucking world. Okay, now this is actually interesting. Reason why is because this puts a whole new twist on modern monetary theory. Okay. Now, regardless of my personal views, you're going to want to get with people like Amberly and some of the others, Lana and Dolores. Matter of fact, there are a couple sessions on a regular basis that happen on KRTD Media about modern monetary theory where you may be interested, whether you believe in it or not. You may be interested in actually sitting down and understanding the theory behind it. Reason why is because it has been the theory under which U.S. monetary policy has been effectively ran for over 50 years now. Okay? Congress prints all the money they need. If they need more, they just print more. That is modern monetary theory. Okay, now there's supposed to be rules about how you use it so that you don't deal with hyperinflation like what we're dealing with right now, what we are going to be dealing with in the very near future, where the entire U.S. monetary policy, U.S. money, those are savings, those are interest-bearing accounts, are now effectively losing money because the value of the dollar is decreasing faster than the interest on the savings accounts. Okay. The purchasing power of something you put in 2015 is now significantly less than it was, despite interest, as a result. Okay, the United States government has lost control of the global currency policy. Done. It's gone. China's taking it over. We can't even control our own monetary policy internal to the country as a result. Okay? It's a game, and it's going to get ugly. If there is one thing, it's three things, folks. That is three things. We have lost control of our food. That means we've lost our control. Our government has lost control of us, the people, because our government can no longer feed us. We've lost control of the energy. Okay? We are no longer capable of sustaining the energy production necessary to maintain the global force production the global force projection capability to ensure that unilateral actions by U.S. military forces go unopposed. Now, there are a certain number of us that are happy that this is the case, because it means the U.S. will not be doing war anymore. We can't afford to do war anymore. However, there are an awful lot of us, a lot of people, who are very much afraid because of this particular change in the dynamic, because of the energy wars. Because now we are losing our ability to defend the empire, is what it comes down to. All of the gains of empire up to this point are now subject to being lost because we no longer have the energy capability to maintain force projection around the world. There are an awful lot of people that are going to be scared because of that. They're going to make decisions because of that. Okay? Be conscious, be mindful of your decisions. Okay? Don't react out of fear, because this is all salvageable. This is all solvable. We can fix this. Not with the people in charge, which is why you see so many of us advocating for dump the incumbents. Okay? Where's my banner for that? Where's my banner for that? Dump the incumbents, folks. We need it to happen if we are going to be able to maintain the defense of our homes in relationship to the energy siege, the money siege, and the food siege that is coming our way as a result of actions of the U.S. government over the last 4 years. God. And we realize it's been happening a lot longer than that, right? It's been happening a lot longer than that. Okay. Price gouging equally to blame as inflation. Yeah. Yeah. We'll play that game. At the end of the day, cost of living for the average American citizen continues to go up faster than the money supply does, despite how much money has been injected into the system. Okay, no control over the food, energy, water, healthcare, government itself. Bingo! Only radical solutions remain. Okay, we got one last shot, folks. We got one last shot. We might have time for it. We might. Well, it is. Googly eyes. Google eyes, yes. Okay. Yeah, but these are things that we got to pay attention to, particularly as things go on. We got one last shot. Okay. Things are not going to change with current decision makers in place, with the current membership of Congress, with the current membership of the Senate. Okay. The problems that have developed in the last 4 years. Okay. Mind you, these have been 50 years in the making. Okay. These policies have been 50 years in the making. Hey, Mike. How you doing, man? Thanks for showing up. Sorry. It does happen, man. It does happen. It's all right. You'll be able to go back and review, and we'll be able to talk about some of this later. You know, we're down to the last 10 minutes, and I got to bail here soon. But yeah, supply chain. You know, go ahead and re-hit it here again real quick, Mike. Okay. Did the Henry Kissinger quote, "Who controls the food supply controls the people. Who controls the energy can control whole continents. Who controls money can control the world." Okay. In the last 2 years, Mike, you've been paying attention, right? The United States government has now lost control of the food. 18 plants gone up in smoke. Okay. Commodities futures have been bought out by other nations. There are already contracts for all the food that will be produced this summer, this year. We will be going into winter without any food reserves. Energy. Okay, our current energy war right now, Biden has set us up. We know we are digging into the strategic reserves. Oh, God. No. It's not my game, man. That's not my game. I don't do that shit. Okay. Democracy is two wolves and a sheep deciding what's for dinner. We aren't interested in saving democracy. We are interested in saving our communities. We are interested in saving the people. We are interested in saving family, friends, community. Okay? What the nation has done to us, what they've used that word to do to us, okay? Yeah, no. We don't do that because that's not going to work. People will have to take individual action, mindful choices, intentional action in order to fix the problem. They can't wait for a group consensus to take action and pick a path. Okay? Leaders will show up. Leaders will take action. Your choices: lead, follow, get out of the way. Hopefully you're in one of those groups that we all work together. But we are going to be in a situation right soon. We don't have the time to debate. Individuals are going to have to make choices, conscious choices, mindful choices. They're going to have to take intentional action with designs for a deliberate outcome. Right? Civil discourse. Okay, when U.S. Congress or any legislative body talks about civility in discussion, okay, civility is only allowed for those that have been invited to the table. You have not been invited to the table. You will not be sitting at it. When you go, do not expect civil discourse from those people. They don't want to hear from you. They're in it for themselves. Right, chasing the dollar right to hell. Petrodollar is gone. We're in trouble. We've lost food, and that was the third thing. Money. We've lost control of the money. Used to be the International Monetary Fund was based on the U.S. dollar. It no longer is. It no longer can be. Okay, we have countries right now that are rejecting the U.S. dollar because of the way we've decided to overprint it and overproduce it. They're going to China as the reserve currency. International Monetary Fund, it's going to be owned by China because the U.S. lost control of their money. Longer life expectancy. Right? There's an awful lot of them. They're looking at eugenics. They're looking at neo-eugenics. They're ready to start culling the herd. I hate to say it, but we literally have people, decision makers, like a certain New York governor that has decided on policies that are equitable to euthanasia and or eugenics. I mean, who in their right mind puts COVID patients in cohabitation with assisted living facilities where the elderly who have the highest comorbidity rate are likely to die? Okay, that right there should have told you 2 years ago, what the decision makers were planning. Okay. The application of scientific knowledge for practical purposes. We got it, man. We got it. We can do it. We don't need the elites to do it. We have the innovation. We have the skills. We have the local talent. We have the ability to create and develop the technology we need as communities to survive. Okay. Independent of the federal government. Right? They got us calling ourselves dead weight. Yeah, they still need us, man. They still need us. Right? It's now the economic superpower. Reason why is because we screwed the pooch. Okay, so again, folks, these are things that are important. These are things you need to be paying attention to. Okay? We're down to our last hurrah. Okay? We have the opportunity to evolve beyond the cycle of revolution that is coming. Evolve. We can break the cycle. We can. Hey, we've been on a slow burn since Roosevelt, right? Slow burn. Just circling the drain. Said we're getting in closer to the bottom right now. Starting to spin significantly faster than it was back in the day. We are no longer seeing 10, 15 years between depressions, recessions. Literally, we have a new recession, a new depression every other year, sometimes faster. We continue to see industries that have decided they are too big to fail, and they behave as much. Reason why is because they know the United States government, in the best interest of their bank accounts, will save them, will bail them out. Yeah. That slow burn is getting pretty damn fast these days. Just Pay attention, folks. Look out for your neighbors. Look out for yourselves. Look out for your community. Look out for your family. Because we are losing a significant amount of this. Multi-generation, it's already happening. You know, the housing market right now is forcing us back into multi-generational housing again. You know, families, kids are moving back in with their parents, grandkids are moving in with their grandparents. Reason why is because that's the only way they are able to make it work. Okay, networking of skills, intentional communities. Okay, those people with land, those people with the ability to create sustainable farms, sustainable communities with food sovereignty. Yeah, work with your states, work with local people on developing food sovereignty in your communities. Because if you aren't planting this spring, you're going to be real hungry come fall. Unless something significant changes, folks. There's hope, but it takes intentional action. It takes human action against the machine. Love you guys. Remember, family, friends, community. As long as you got those three, you can make anything happen. Stay safe, stay aware, mindful, and intentional. Love you guys. Thanks again, Dolores. Appreciate it. Kay, there we go. There we go. There we go. That was the one I was looking for. And yeah, Michelle, network our skills. Go again. Plug it before I'm out of here, okay? Let me go ahead and post you up here, Mike. Because Mike's got a YouTube. He's one of my fellow libertarians out here in the state of Idaho. He's actually running as a local legislator. Reason why is because he believes in the food sovereignty. He believes in the community action. He believes in independence as well as leadership. Lead, follow, get out of the way. Mike's one of our leaders, folks. He does. He doesn't talk about it. He does. Okay. So I'm out. Sorry, Mike. Catch you later. You guys have a great evening. Love you. Post your link in the conversation after, I won't be able to share it before I type out, but have a good one, guys. Love you all.